Tonight on Countdown to Green, presented by Wendy's. We recap all the action from Pocono. We talk with the drivers over at RFK Racing. And we take a look at how you're racing at home with the Logitech Show Us Your Rig segment. All that and more tonight on Countdown to Green.
'Cause we're invincible.
Welcome to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. This is Countdown to Green, and guess what? It's Michigan night. I'm your host, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. Joining me, as always, we have Alan Cabana and Blake McCandless. How are you two doing?
Oh, it's so awesome to be here because it's the start of the playoffs. The march to $100,000 starts tonight for 10 of our drivers. Plenty on the line for everybody else, but that 100 grand, Blake, you gotta be thinking about that. Oh, and the big trophy.
Well, it's a big prize to chase tonight, Alan, but you have to think about the fact that, of course, we have 3 races in this round, but there'd be no better way to go ahead and clear yourself into that championship 4 and start imagining yourself on that stage battling for that title when we get to Homestead in about a month.
Yes, it is the march. I like how you said it, Alan. The Michigan March to Championship 4. But before we find out what we could expect from the night, or what we hope to expect from the night, we got to take a look back at Pocono.
Pace car going to be in this time. It is a William Byron Esports front row lockout led by the 25 of Ottinger. Let's go racing at Pocono. Unfortunately for Joey Brown, that will end his night. That car has gone to the garage, and it'll be a DNF for the 14 car. 4 wide now, 5 wide in turn 1. Conti's into the outside wall, and there they go. Kerwin spins, and he'll take some more with him. They dived to pit road, and they were all led by race leader 97 Matt Busa. Mullis thought he was going to get behind the 88. He did not. And there's the contact. He hooks Kevin King for caution flag, I think number 4. Here's the onboard perspective. Again, it almost looks like deja vu with Mullis, right? The cars on the outside are driving by. Tough to tell if he's going for a little bit of a side draft or trying to just get immediately in line, but you just can't make that kind of contact at these speeds on that left rear quarter panel. Caution flag will fly. It's back in traffic. We are going to overtime. It's attempt number 1 at eNASCAR overtime. Green flag in the air. They're already trying to fan out. Malik Ray tries to go 3 wide, and look at the mess behind them. 1 lap to go as they race on the checkered paint to turn 1. Malik Ray can get in on points, or he can get in with a race win. Ottinger goes low. He wants to dodge the draft. The 45 car, though, a guest, will not go away. Tried to go to the inside, 3 wide, couldn't get there. Look at the 97 car, but he'll take his teammate out. Busa pushes Ottinger, but it's too much to handle. And Michael Guest will win at Pocono.
Oh, we love to see some first-time winners, don't we? Michael Guest finally gets it done after a long stay in this series and sets up this 10-driver playoffs that we will battle over the next 3 races at Michigan, Dover, and Phoenix. And relatively close, Alan, in terms of how these drivers are set up. We don't run stages. We don't run playoff points here. So their win gets them 3 bonus points each, but that's going to set up all of these 10 drivers nearly tied in the points. It is going to be a 3-race season that resets tonight for these drivers in the playoffs. But of course, it's not just about the playoffs tonight. There is so much for these drivers to fight for in terms of keeping their spot in this series. And I think when you take a look at this chart, you can see all the way down to even Caden Honeycutt. He's 56 points back right now of staying in that top 20, keeping his spot in this series next year. And I think there's a good argument, Alan, that if you're within about 60 points right now, it is realistic that if you can put together a solid couple of races, you can get in that top 20 and avoid relegation at the end of this season.
So much on the line, goes all the way through Homestead. Also going through Homestead are the team standings, team title. And to that note, look at the top of the board. William Byron Esports, a new leader by a lot, actually. That was a significant race for Team Dillon Esports, dropping far back. One bad race for both of their drivers. William Byron Esports all the way up at the top. Again, this goes to the end of the season, so great race there. Below 13th, though, you got to worry about those drivers. They're already out. Those teams, RFK and below, they are out. What's interesting about William Byron Esports, no victories for them. Team Dillon Esports does have the wins. Byron Esports, though, they are doing it as a team. Still a lot of pride and money on the line for those guys.
Well, aside from almost wrecking each other for the win at Pocono, they did get the lead, but maybe that's why they don't have any wins right now.
They both finished. That's what counts.
They both crossed the line. Let's talk about Pocono because I want to know what you know from Pocono. Let's talk about your thoughts. You guys can't laugh at the pun. I'm very upset about that. Go ahead.
It didn't go unnoticed.
I'm laughing on the inside, Camille, I promise. But it's just because we're thinking about winning. That's what matters. Michael Guest winning shows us that is the only true way to a championship. Were we thinking about Guest before Pocono? No, he wasn't having a great season. He wasn't in position to get into the playoffs. But guess what? One awesome victory, one awesome drive puts him in position. If he can do it again tonight, he'll have a 1-4 shot at a title and $100,000. Winning is the way to the big trophy. Michael Guest proved that in Pocono. Someone can do that tonight.
Well, I know coming out of Pocono, and it was a different story there because we had everybody trying to make the postseason. But now that we're there are still 30 drivers on track who have no shot at competing for a championship, yet they play just as much of a factor as any of our 10 playoff drivers in the terms of the outcome of the race. Cautions that will fall and whether they want to race the leaders hard. And there's a lot of money. There's a lot of pride. Of course, we talked about the relegation battle earlier, but how will the non-playoff drivers factor in? I think of somebody like Malik Ray last week. He wants that first win, and he wants to do it in the next 4 races, whether he's fighting for a championship or not. So going to be a lot to watch with these non-playoff drivers and how they affect the outcome of these races.
Well, whether it's a non-playoff driver or playoff driver, we always love to check in with our drivers here. So let's take a look and check in with the RFK drivers.
Well, I figured since I'm a real life driver, of course, I would think being involved in a cup team on the esports side would definitely be a good step for me to be involved in, especially with all about relationships, right? So I think in the aspect of me just wanting to be part of the team, as much as it's not about money for me, as much as it's just about relationships and getting where I want to be at. And the Coke Series is the series that helps me get there. I figured that would be a good choice for me to stay, and I love RFK. I've loved Ford ever since I started racing NASCAR and be involved in the sport as long as I have. So I figured being involved with RFK, it would be a good choice for me, and hopefully I get to stay in the series again for next year and be able to run with them again.
Really always like Brad, and he drives for RFK obviously, so when I got offered that, it was kind of if this can work out, that's 100% I'm going with them. So that was just who I wanted from the start, honestly, all the way through contender and everything else. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good year with them. Obviously, I'm new to this, so my expectations aren't too high, but I definitely want to go try to get a playoff spot. If anything, just lock myself in the next year.
I think he's done a great job as a rookie. Obviously, my first year as a rookie was way worse than him, so I give him props for that. You know, we've both had great runs going in multiple races together. It's either I finish good or he finishes bad, or he finishes good and I finish bad. So we just haven't had a lot of good team points, mostly from a luck side and way things have worked out in these races. So really a race that stands out the most is Pocono. I know he was running really well at Pocono until I had my crash at the end, and then he had his mishaps early on in the race. So it's just been, you know, one of them years that you just wish that you could start all over again, do things differently. But I figured we still have a chance to be top 10 in team points. It's just a matter of, you know, pulling stuff together and hopefully being in the right places at the right time for both of us.
I race dirt go-karts in real life, and I won 2 national championships in the past 3 years. Yeah, I've always raced go-karts since I was 5 years old, man. My dad grew up doing it, so that was a given. So I've always been in racing. So when I got iRacing, it was kind of like, I want to say I picked up on it pretty quick, and I don't know, just racing in general has helped a ton.
And it's just fun. I enjoy the dirt side very much on iRacing. It's just a series that I don't have to put in nearly enough time in order to run well. So I feel like the dirt side is another competitive series, if not one of the most competitive series on the sim. It's so close, it's so difficult, and you know, dirt side is something I do in real life as well, in the dirt late model stuff. So I feel like if I can get better at that, I can get better in real life too. And just if you involve yourself in anything on this thing, it will completely change the way of your driving, and it will boost you to the next level, and I promise you that. So that's why I'm not scared to be involved in the dirt side or the asphalt side, and that's why I think what I'm at right now is because of that. So I enjoy it, I really do, and so that's mostly one of the big reasons why I do the dirt side on iRacing.
Hard work. It takes a lot of time to put laps in, testing all week, all the time you can. So just effort, hard work.
A lot of this stuff is luck, and now you got to race playoff guys, right? And you want to be respectful to the playoff guys that are racing for a championship and not wreck one of them or do anything like that, because then your reputation just goes down the tank after that. So it's hard to balance, man. It really is. So you just got to race like you normally do, and just hope that it works out.
I love that. Some blue-collar guys, hard workers, really representing the real-world side of things for Brad Keselowski. We'll hear from him later in the show, but ultra-talented at both iRacing and real stuff. You heard national championships at karting, and we know Caden Honeycutt races the Craftman Truck Series, races the Cars Tour. Blake pointed out he had his check back there in the background. So multi-talented drivers for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing on many levels. Very cool to see.
Yeah, it's definitely very cool to see, and to get like a sneak peek of their setups at home, which means, you know what, we should probably do that and get a sneak peek at all of your rigs at home as well, because it is time for our Logitech Show Us Your Rigs. This is where we get to see your rigs at home, and our first one is from Brendan. This is pretty cool. Alan?
Yeah, this is
tee up Blake for the first one.
That's all right, but yeah, Brendan got a really nice setup here. It's not often that you see the monitors kind of mounted on the walls like what we see here, but it's kind of an effective use of space. I like it.
It's eye level, you know? It makes sure that you're not looking down. Alan, this next one is from Garrett.
Yeah, Garrett. Look at that. 5 monitors, the 3 across the bottom, 2 up top, but you got a desk set up. I love the Hoosier banner. That's some old school stuff and some, like, you know, Midwest dirt racing stuff, it feels like. But the neon lighting, the case lighting, all that stuff, that's what really makes a good setup.
Our next one is from Preston Wilson.
Yes, Preston, the Logitech Driving Force GT. I absolutely love it. That's the same wheel that I use, and even he's got the VR setup. You can see right there next to his laptop that he's got, so another desk setup. Actually, I have that exact same action figure that's on the wall. That Jeff Gordon action figure that was up there. I had that when I was younger, too.
I think that's a doll.
Inspiration. Yeah,
That's a doll, not an action figure.
No, it's not a doll. We're not starting that argument here. Our next one's for Raymond. Raymond is in space. Do you see the stars here?
I do. I love it. Love it. That's a Ken Block poster. If you look closely, 43 forever. That's very cool. And then you see the next one. That's Shane up there, full triple rig with a G29 setup. You got to wonder, is there a guitar amp down there? Is that what's pumping out the sound? That's pretty cool. Or he's multitasking, racing while playing guitar, Blake.
Very, very nice use there. Again, we see a lot of multi-purpose rigs in this segment. And how about comfort with this one? An ultra-wide screen, a streaming setup with the mic on the arm that you got set up right there. But I got to say, the comfort level there, you're kind of leaning back a little bit for Walker in his rig right here.
I'm loving the blue chair. I have to say, I'm loving it. Be sure to send us your rigs using the hashtag eNASCAR and tagging NASCAR and iRacing on all the socials. We're everywhere because we love to see all your beautiful rigs at home right here on Countdown to Green, presented by Wendy's. Now, Alan, we heard from the RFK drivers, and you teased earlier that we may hear from one of the owners. I think we have him on standby.
Oh, yeah. So proud to have Brad Keselowski, Cup champion, joining us here on Countdown to Green. Brad, thank you so much for joining us here. First and foremost, tell us about RFK and the value that they see in both iRacing and eNASCAR having a team.
Well, I think RFK joined iRacing, or at least the Coca-Cola series, before me. But when I came to be a part of RFK, I quickly see the value in it. One, obviously, it opens this up to a different market of people in motorsports, which I think it's certainly something we pride ourselves in, is trying not to overly limit ourselves. But then more than that, there's a source of pride of partners and everyone else and that's inside our walls, inside our team that really cares about our program and wants to see us win, whether it's on Sunday on the racetrack here in Indianapolis or virtually during the middle of the week here with the iRacing Coke Series. So I think it opens a lot of eyes to new opportunities. And we're in a changing world, and we got to keep that.
I like you thinking forward like that. What feature do you say you enjoy the most about iRacing?
Well, first off, there's nothing like iRacing for modeling tracks. The maps that iRacing has as tracks are so realistic. The graphics are so good that it really immerses you in an environment that is unrivaled by anything else out there. And so I think, starting off there, it makes it a lot easier when you go to a real racetrack that, all the signs are the same, all the markers are the same, and just makes you feel more comfortable in those environments. I guess, I got two young kids in my oldest daughter talking about starting school here in the next week or two, and, how nervous she is. And I asked her, why are you nervous? Well, I don't know what my classroom's going to be like, I don't know this, that. And I think about iRacing, and I go to the racetrack, especially when you're in the NASCAR circuit, you go to 20 to 30 different tracks a year, it's be intimidating. The tracks are different, and they're always having work put on them. And so if you can kind of put yourself in that environment before you go there, that can be really helpful. And iRacing allows us to do that.
Sounds like we need to invent iClassroom. We'll work on that. But you were a large part of the success for iRacing when it was on TV during the pandemic. Did you have a personal highlight of being in those races?
Well, during the pandemic, iRacing obviously was really great for our industry as a whole. It gave us a chance to continue to tell our story for our partners, for our fans. We would have been in trouble without that. So, it's really cool to see that technology come together. And for me, I think the highlight was winning Talladega virtually on the Fox broadcast, and then a few days later in reality. And it was really an interesting moment, I think, for the sport and for me personally, where kind of like these worlds colliding.
Where I know some teams already, some Cup teams, some Sunday Cup teams have iRacers on their payroll already. Where do you see the future of sim racing going?
I think the future of sim racing is finding drivers with exceptional talent and being able to hold everything else around them. And I've always been a believer in that with all my other teams. They start with someone who's got a lot of talent, and then you help them get the life skills that they'll need to be successful with their team members, partnerships, and all that. And iRacing, I think, allows us to just kind of cut the chase and find talent first.
We know you're a Michigan native. What's the best advice you have for the drivers tonight? Your driver, Chris Buescher, won there a few weeks ago. We know y'all can get it done. What's the best advice you have for the Coke drivers?
I think the easiest advice, simplest advice I'd give our drivers as we go to Michigan to start the iRacing playoff series here, or playoff run, is just to try to think of Michigan like a blend between Talladega and a normal Mount Half track. And you got to be in a good position down the straightaways to get good draft, really getting in line on corner exit as quickly as possible. But then in the corners, that you try to think of it like a mile and a half track, and hitting your arc into the corner just right is so critical, and placement as a whole is very, very critical, like a normal mountain.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this series. Brad Keselowski, owner of Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. Camille Blake, I mean, giving advice. That's like LeBron James telling you how to hit a free throw or something. You're getting it from Brad Keselowski. I hope all the drivers were listening.
I hope they were listening as well. And I hope all of the drivers are still listening for the trends, just to kind of get an idea of what's been happening in Michigan Pass. So march us through the trends, Alan.
Yeah, Michigan, a big history here in the iRacing series. This is the 14th race at the track in the Coke series, but it's the first time this race is run during the playoffs, so something different for these drivers to think about. Overall, 3 of our playoff drivers have won here previously. Michael Conti back in 2017, Garrett Lowe back in 2019, and Casey Kerwin a couple years ago in 2020. In 19 of the 13 races we've had here, the winner has led the most laps during the race. That's 70% of the races. So you're going to be up front in 9 of the 13 races. The winners led the most laps during the races. So that's a big deal. Point 4, in only 3 of the 13 races did the pole sitter go on to win the race. So if you qualify up front, yes, that's good, but it's not necessarily a guarantee you're going to go on and get that checkered flag. Only 3 of 13 times. Only 3 race winners went on to win the championship. Only 3 winners of this race. That was back in 2010, in 2015, and then Ray Alfala did it in 2016. So again, you like to get the trophy, but you want the big one at the end. Now, in 10 of the 13 races, the Michigan race winner did not win another race that season. That's not what you want. If you're in the playoffs, you want to win this race, and of course you want to win Homestead. So I don't think anyone's going to deny themselves a win just based on historic stats. You want to make history, not look at it and run. So there are the trends for Michigan.
Make history, don't run from it, and don't break history as well, because we do like trends. We love it. Thank you, Alan.
I like it.
Now, all right, let's take a look at the track, Blake. Let's run through the 3D track.
Let's go ahead and do it here at Michigan International Speedway, this large 2-mile racetrack with 18 degrees of banking in the turns and a lot of lanes for these drivers to use. But I think Brad put it in a good sense that you kind of had to think of this as a merger between a track like a Daytona or Talladega and a mile and a half. Opened in 1968 with a 600-mile race. The Yankee 600 used to run at this track before we came full circle to the Coca-Cola 600. And, of course, our 2021 winner the last time we were at Michigan, Matt Musa, who came up just short of making the playoffs at Pocono.
Well, as we said, we're marching our way to Championship 4. So let's take a look at our picks for the brackets. Who's going to make it to Championship 4? You know what? I'm going to start. Bobby Z, Casey Kerwin, Michael Conti, and Garrett Lowe. If you look at the standings, this may not be a surprise. I'm not going crazy here, guys.
But Bobby Z, you finally give him the title, Camille.
You know what? I really do hope that he can make it. He always is so consistent, but he just needs that little push to actually take it. Alan?
Yeah, I got filled out my bracket. I got Tucker Minter, Michael Conti, Jordy Lopez, and Casey Kerwin, the defending champion. I got some new, some old, some veteran in there. I love a good story for Michael Conti, but I think Casey Kerwin, it's that Homestead track. I think he repeats as champion, Blake.
Well, and Alan, I think show me what you've done recently, and there's been no better driver the last couple of weeks than Garrett Lowe. So I'm going to go 2 rookies in the Final Four. Michael Conti makes it as well as this in his song season, and Garrett Lowe, who has been great at so many different types of tracks. I think it could be an upset, but I think Garrett Lowe, when all is said and done, will be the champion for us this season.
Well, I don't want to give my opinion on your picks just because, you know, our points, well, your brackets, because our picks, my picks hasn't been that good. But let's take a look at the pick points to embarrass.
Ooh, look at that.
Look at that embarrassing point by Blake there. Blake, you actually have a lot of catching up to do. I think you need to like
have a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta knock it out of the park for the next 2 races. But tell us who you're picking for this race.
All right, so you saw him in my Championship 4. I think he's going to get his way there tonight. He won at Daytona earlier this year. I'm going to go with Tucker Minter. Has been really strong on these types of tracks. Won at Charlotte. I think he gets his 3rd win in the Coke Series tonight and locks his way into the Homestead Miami Championship 4 tonight. Alan?
Yeah, you know me. I will admit to it. I've been playing defense, but I've been making the best picks all season, so I will hope to continue to do that. Remember my bracket. One of my winners has to go to the Final Four, and one of those winners tonight is Michael Conti. He's on his swan song. He's going out winner, and he raced for the $10,000 when he wins tonight.
Well, Blake,
100,000.
I wish you well with your pick because I also chose Tucker Minter for this one. I kind of regret it now because if you fail, so do I.
So I'm not going to be able to make up ground, but you know what? We made a good pick. You know why? Tucker Minter is on pole for tonight.
Oh. Remember,
Alan,
pole
are you
winners.
Sweating a little bit?
Not at all. If you listen to the trends, you know pole winners don't win this race a lot.
Oh, okay. Throwing that back in our faces. Well, going in, this is the playoff race. What do you think is going through these drivers' head right now? Their heads right now.
I can't imagine. You saw that this is the path to $100,000, really life-changing money. But one win changed everything. We saw that with Michael Guest, and it can take so much pressure off your shoulders if you get that checkered flag tonight. I think that's what has to be the focus. Not the hole you can dig yourself, Blake. It's what you can do if you get that win.
Well, I think what's going through their heads right now, again, they got through qualifying, which we know is probably the most stressful part of these races, getting your track position initially, but how you're going to set yourself up for this race. If you're in the back, it is going to be really difficult to try and find your way to the front at the end. Only 70 laps, so there's not a lot of time to get it done. This is a short race here tonight. So you had a great qualifying effort. I'm sure they're feeling really good. If not, you may not get your playoffs started off on the right foot.
All right. Well, hopefully they're looking ahead. And you know who is looking, back and ahead with their paint scheme tonight is Michael Conti with this huge homage to his mom, 4 years ago. From today exactly, his mom unfortunately lost her battle with cancer, and he's paying homage to her with this paint scheme. That is the sweetest thing.
Yeah, throwback scheme. What a story that would be, Camille. If he were to win, and we know it's his final season, we know there's so much on the line being a playoff driver, but to have that special scheme and the dedication to his mom, what a win that would be.
Yes. Yeah, it really does show the passion that the community has. And, we joke about our picks here, but I'm really rooting for Conti for this one, just for the story and just for, the heart that he's putting out there for the whole community to support him. So I love it. I love this community, and I'm not going to shed any tears for this, but what I will say is hopefully not too many drivers shed tears today because it is playoffs, baby, right here on Countdown to Green. Thank you so much for tuning in to Countdown to Green presented by Wendy's, and stay tuned right after the break because the race starts then.
I need to try it first.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, so come get that Baconator.
Give me one honk if you want a Baconator.
Yeah, give me 2 honks if you want Tyler to make it.
Go
Go night mode. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's Baconator.
Our family stories are your family stories, except with more confetti.
Relive racing history with a walk along Glory Road, or try your hand at our fan favorite racing simulator or pit crew challenge. Feel the passion and thrill of racing with stories and artifacts from the legends who shaped the sport in the Hall of Honor and Heritage Speedway.
Visit the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte for the ultimate outing. NASCAR Hall of Fame, this is our sport. This is our house.
This is our series, where the stakes are always higher, where virtual meets reality. This is the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
Yeah, look at my shine with it though. This is my time with it though. This is my time to be way at the top. Me and my guys gon' pay out the block. I don't look like boss. Time's right, and I know the scene's walking in a long night. Promise you gon' wanna watch like a sci-fi. My guys are high risers, high tide. My crown if you come to my side. I pledge allegiance for lifetime. My squad connected like Wi-Fi. We grind and you see the highlights. This my life. It ain't a game now. Me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way. You wasn't invited. Say you wanna play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Don't step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way.
The road to $300,000 is down to the best 10 in the world. We're tonight from iRacing's virtual Michigan International Speedway. We say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Race 1, Round 1. This is the 2023 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Playoffs. And as always, just as we have every week so far this year, we're happy that you're spending your Tuesday night with us on the iRacing Esports Network. Blake McCandless alongside myself, Evan Pocono, and Blake. We have gone through a tough 14 rounds to get to this point, and we took 40 and whittled them down to 10. That $100,000 grand prize could be in reach tonight for somebody if they can get a win.
That is the case, Evan. 10 drivers have the opportunity to be able to lock their way in. And, you know, talking to many of these drivers beforehand, they view this as somewhat of the wild card of this round. When you think about Michigan, Dover, and Phoenix, this is a wide open opportunity for a lot of these drivers who are really good at the mile and a half. So a lot of these bigger tracks we've been at throughout the season to really have their chance to work the draft, to work with their teammates, and eventually find their way in victory lane. So for it being the first race of the round, they couldn't have scheduled it any better. It's wide open. Anybody, I think, has a chance to try and stamp their way in the championship for it.
There's going to be other stories we'll follow, right? Relegation and that, but the rules stay the same. You win, you're in. That is true for our 10 playoff drivers tonight. So to get the first race of these playoffs underway, let's hand things over to our good friend, Keenan Kusin.
Welcome, everyone, to the opening round of the 2023 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Playoffs. The green flag drops in the race for one of the biggest prizes in sim racing. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Playoff contenders. From Fresno, California, driving the number 18 Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. A playoff regular finally trying to raise the big trophy, it's Bobby Zelensky. A former series champion and your regular season points leader, trying to end the It's Been Great tour as a two-time champion from Charlotte, North Carolina in the number 8 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet, it's Michael Conti. Coming into the playoffs on his first attempt, he locked his spot in all the way back at Daytona and backed it up with a win at Charlotte. From Warrenton, Virginia, driving the number 33 Team Dillon Esports Chevrolet, it's Tucker Minter. Trying to go back-to-back this season, earning his way into the playoffs with one of the closest finishes in eNASCAR history at Talladega in the number 95 XZ Chevrolet from Matthews, North Carolina, it's Casey Kerwin. Driving the number 3 Team Dillon Esports Chevrolet out of Bayonne, New Jersey, fighting tooth and nail for his win at St. Louis, and a familiar face in front of the field, and that name is Jordy Lopez. the third of the returning drivers for the 2022 Championship 4. From Iowa City, Iowa, it's the driver, the number 10 Stuart Haas Esports Ford Mustang, it's Steven Wilson. Refusing to be denied and grasping victory with both hands at New Hampshire, representing Jim Beaver Esports, the number 15 Ford Mustang from Gastonia, North Carolina, it's Garrett Lowe. After over 100 tries at taking the checkered flag, he finally got it done this season when it counted the most with a win at Pocono. From Brownsburg, Indiana, driving the number 45 2311 Toyota, it's Michael Guest. Even with a win at Nashville, this driver's playoff berth came down to the wire at Pocono. For Rise Esports and the number 46 Chevrolet from Midland, North Carolina, it's Jimmy Mullis. An eNASCAR staple and your 2020 season champion. In the number 25 William Byron Esports Chevrolet from Claremont, North Carolina, it's the Audi boss, Nick Ottinger. Only 4 of these drivers will have a chance to race for the championship in Homestead. But it all starts tonight at Michigan. The 2023 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series playoff starts now.
Let's go trackside and take a look at your Coca-Cola starting grid and pole position tonight for the first time this season. It is the Austin Dillon entry, the Team Dillon Esports 33 of Tucker Minter. He'll be alongside the Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan owned 2311 racing entry of Keegan Leahy. Then our second playoff competitor on the grid tonight will be Garrett Lowe, representing Jim Beaver Esports in the 15 car, next to the Williams Esports 51 of Donovan Strauss. Row number 3 will see another duo of playoff competitors. It is the Joe Gibbs Racing 18 of Bobby Zelensky and the Dale Earnhardt Jr. owned Junior Motorsports number 8 of Michael Conti. 2 non-playoff competitors will make up row number 4. It is the Front Row Motorsports 30 to Michael Cozy Jr. and the second Joe Gibbs Racing entry, this one the 54 of Daniel Falkingham. And on row 5, playoff driver Steven Wilson in his Stuart Haas Esports number 10, going to be alongside his teammate. That's the 41 of Dylan Duvall.
It's an E-Racer row 6 with Colin Keister and Colin Bowden representing Landon Castle and Parker Kligerman. Jim Beaver Esports' other entry, Malik Ray, will start in 13th with Joey Brown. FGR Excel starts in the 14th spot in that 14 car. The William Byron Esports entry of Nick Ottinger making another playoff appearance and chasing a second championship along with the driver right next to him in Casey Kerwin. Rolling off 17th tonight, Wyatt Tinsley for the Kansas City Pioneers and Ryan Luza for XSET, one of his better starts of the season in the 18th spot. Jordy Lopez, another playoff contender for Team Dillon, and Brandon McKissick for Steve Letarte will start 20th.
Halfway home, row 11, we'll see the Charlotte Phoenix 43 of Femi Olat alongside the Elliott Sadler Esports number 1 of Derek Bordeaux. Row number 12, Timmy Holmes in the RFK Racing just talked to his team boss, Brad Keselowski. That's the 6 of Timmy Holmes. And the 2311, the second of that Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan owned team. It's the 45 a guest in the playoffs, but with some work to do in 24th. The Garrett Maines will bring the FGR Excel E-Racing number 12 car off from the inside of row 13 to the outside. It is the Pittsburgh Knight 77 of Ryan Doucette. Row 14 tonight, we'll see the 2-car lineup on the inside. That will be the second Pittsburgh Night entry for Corey Vincent, and then the William Byron Esports 97 to the outside of Matt Busa. And through your top of 30 tonight, the Tony Kanaan entry of the 11 for Parker White, alongside the Letarte Esports 40 of Dylan Alt.
Zach Novak for Rise Esports goes 31st, and the other front row entry in Alan Bowes will start in the 32nd position tonight. Kevin King for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Junior Motorsports starts 33rd. Cody Bias for Elliott Sadler Esports will go from the 34th spot tonight. Vicente Salas, the first driver that did not put down a time in qualifying, will go from 35th, as well as Derek Justice for the Kansas City Pioneers in 36th. 37th is Caden Honeycutt, and 38th because of a penalty. He could not qualify. Going to start his playoff bid from behind tonight for Rise Esports in Jimmy Mullis. And Graham Boland so close to making the playoffs after in a Championship 4 appearance last season. And Tyler Gary will make out row 20. Again, your final 6 cars not putting down a time in qualifying. We We'll now catch up with our pole sitter tonight in Tucker Minter. Again, winner back at Daytona and Charlotte, but Tucker, it all resets now. What's the mindset going in, and how are you going to execute a night at Michigan to end up in victory lane?
Yeah, Blake, I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be here, contending for the playoffs and to make it to the Final Four at Homestead. Just going to try to kind of maintain track position all night, just be smart. One person, if they win, gets to lock into Homestead, but it's a lot easier to lose your chance at Homestead tonight than it is to punch your ticket. So just trying to have a clean night tonight and looking forward to getting started here.
I know, hearing that the draft and how important that was, how crucial is it to have some of those drivers who can work really well with you? I know, looking back at Daytona, Jordy Lopez, Michael Cosi Jr. were a couple that worked well with you, and they start somewhat towards the front of the field. How important is that to have that help around you at a track that may kind of lend itself to super speedway style racing?
Yeah, it's important just to be able to kind of get in line, take care of your tires, and then try to make the racing around you not as crazy. Luckily, been working well with Keegan and Bobby as well at Daytona and the play tracks and everywhere. So I don't think we'll have too much of a quarrel at the start, I guess. But I guess near the end of the race, it's going to be gloves off.
All right, Tucker. Well, you're my pick for tonight, so go out there, get it done. Best of luck.
Thanks, Blake.
Popular pick, and no surprise, he's on the front row for this one. Of course, you can see it on his 33 car. You'll see it on all the playoff cars in the field tonight. Those red windshield banners, roof numbers, and other red accents on the race cars. That'll help you keep track of where those championship hopefuls are. They'll also be highlighted in red on the scoring pylon all night long. Well, Blake, it is round one, race one. Tell us more about it, and we take a look at our Wendy's race analysis.
That indeed we will. 70 laps, again, only 140 miles, so not a lot of time. You got to go out there, execute, and get it done quickly. 55 miles an hour down on the pit lane. You'll lose about 22 to 27 seconds on that pit stop should we have a cycle of green flag pit stops. 3 sets of Goodyear Eagles are available, and of course that fuel window is something that will fluctuate depending on whether you're leading or if you're saving back in the draft, as well as the line that you're running. You could save a lot more fuel running that kind of first, second, third lane down around the bottom than you will around the top. So it'll be anywhere from 39 to, I've heard, even about 48 laps or so. And we get one more look, Evan, at that wonderful paint scheme for Michael Conti. He's had a number of good throwback ones, but perhaps none more special than the one he's using tonight.
Absolutely, and he'll be carrying those Gina Strong colors on his number 8 Chevrolet tonight as he looks to close out his eNASCAR career with a second eNASCAR title. Well, our playoff grid of 10's got just about everything. A couple of past champions, a handful of drivers who have been there but haven't done that quite yet, and how about 2 true rookies sprinkled in for good measure. The pace car is down and in. Field in the hands of Tucker Minter as we say, let's go playoff racing at Michigan. A little bit of 3 wide, several rows back. Race leaders, though, still 2 by 2 as they race through 1 and 2. 3 wide's going to be outside of the top 10. Up front, Minter blocks for the race lead. He'll stay ahead of Keegan Leahy, who looks for second.
They are already hitting doors further back in the pack. Casey Kerwin made a mega move to make up about 4 or 5 spots through the middle as he and Colin Keister nearly make contact behind them. You could see Michael Conti trying to do the same and get to the inside of Donovan Strauss. Again, 4 wide off of turn 4, lap number 1, and 3 of those have red banners on their windshield.
You see those red highlights as well on the leaderboard left-hand side of your screen. Any one of those drivers can win their way into the Championship 4 with a trip to victory lane here tonight. A little bit of argy-bargy midfield there. All around the 95 mission to Casey Kerwin. He scored in 11th and was in the middle of some of the 3 wide down at that end of the racetrack. And now it is the 18 car of Zelensky from P5 diving down to the inside as they go off and down to turn number 3. So opportunities aplenty early here at Michigan, but 2 laps in, Tucker Minter continues to lead for now. 4 of your top 6 spots, playoff drivers, as Zelensky loses a few, though, off of turn 4.
And how many times have we seen this? Kerwin kind of starting a little bit further back, but makes his spots up very quickly. A huge stack up on the outside as we ride along board here with Garrett Maines. That's one of these things, Evan, talking to these drivers before this race, that they were really going to have to look for. Everybody thinks you have to be on the high side. You have to use the draft. You have to be really careful about when and where you make your moves. But just as easily, something like that could happen where we have a big stack up on the outside and allows those drivers that go down to the inside to make moves. You could see Derek Bordeaux, that's the #1 car, sliding around for Elliott Sadler Esports as he'll lose several spots. That's the bad end of it, right? You see the top and how those cars really work together in the draft, and if you're Derek Bordeaux, you can lose about 4 or 5 spots all in one straightaway if you're not able to put a corner together.
I don't know if we've made it a whole lot without somebody at least banging onto somebody else's door in the center of a turn thus far. It's got to be high nerves early for those playoff drivers who, again, with a 3-race round one, there is no 16 to 12 to 8 to 4. We're going right to the championship 4 from this round. You cannot really afford any major mistakes as Colin Bowden squeezed in the middle there. The 51 car is Strauss going to get ahead of him. That was at a battle all the way for P7. You can see those leaders, though, Blake, a little bit of single file, high line on the straightaway.
Oh, and Bowden's going there he goes. Around. And somehow he saved it, and the caution finally comes out as Michael Cozy Jr. spins it right in front of Bowden, who had nowhere to go. Bowden got turned as he entered turns 1 and 2, tried to drift and make it through, and then out of nowhere, would have to see what happened to Michael Cozy Jr. because just out of nowhere, Bowden really just had nowhere to go.
Yeah, it looked like he had it. Had the big slide. Wasn't without some contact, but he may have been able to make it through turn 1 if it wasn't for the contact, which sent Michael Cozy Jr. up the hill. And I think the replay will show the 38 car probably just got tagged in some sort of fashion, but everybody tried to go low to avoid that 69 car, who was all but wrecking in the center of 1 and 2. And it'll go from a near miss to a big hit off of 2, and they're not the only ones that evolved, because then we really stacked them up about halfway down the back straightaway. So let's take a second look at the opening yellow flag of the night, and we'll focus in on the ring in the center of your screen. That's the 69 about it, where we saw all of this kick off. This is headed down to turn 1, lap number 5 in this race. The 42 car behind. He's in a 3-wide situation right here. There's a little bit of check up the road. He goes low right there. Gets it on the left rear quarter panel. Catches it, though. There's a save. And I think it was Conti's, or not Conti, I should say, Cozy's teammate, Blake, who came through and got him.
Yeah, it was. It was Alan Bowes and Michael Cozy Jr. that collected each other. I think even Malik Ray was a part of that as well. This is onboard Michael Guest, again, another playoff contender, because this is a huge wreck. This wasn't just Bowden and Cozy. This ended up collecting 7, 8 cars a little bit further on up the road. You can see Malik Ray as, my goodness, look at what Michael Guest is able to dodge. You can see Jimmy Mullis, another playoff contender, gets wrapped up in this one. And we'll take one more look. Derek Bordeaux, he had a big slip off of turn 4 just a lap or 2 prior to this. We'll see what happens to him. You can see the smoke on up the way, and there's not really a safe place to go here, Evan. You can see he gets into the back of Parker White. He's seeing the contact up by the wall, but everybody else is forming up at the bottom, and you can see Mullis spinning. Not too much damage, though, on that 46 car, it doesn't appear.
It is Jimmy July no longer. He started this race, you mentioned, with a penalty, 38th position. That's why he was back there in traffic. And when they wanted to, when they started wrecking in front of him, he did it. He got on the binders. And let's take a look from the 46's perspective. He was almost home free until the 66 car didn't get on the brakes quite as quick behind him and spun him. That's Tyler Gary. So this is Mullis's perspective. Again, playoff driver, any sort of smoke, they're going to be very cautious. He sees it, he's already lifting, and then he's going to get hard onto the brakes here, right? He checks up. It looks like he's good. He finds an opening, and he gets hit from behind. That's why that car spins to the inside, seemingly out of nowhere. He did not hit anybody else. He did not impact the wall, but being dropped to the back of the field after the contact, Blake, he did decide to come down pit road under this yellow. Not much of a penalty for him because he was already down there in the rear, but not at least the forward momentum he wanted early, as Mullis gets a small piece of that one.
Well, and again, I think that just shows you how important track position is. Mullis, by virtue of a grid penalty, was not able to qualify, so was put in the back. And these are the type of situations you can find yourself in when you're in the back of the field. So not the way he wanted to start his postseason, but at least taking a look at the damage for Jimmy Mullis, not too bad. I think that's something they can fix up easily and hopefully won't be too much of a detriment to his race.
Of course, if you want to keep up to date with the latest news and updates from the world of eNASCAR, then you can scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of our screen and sign up today with iRacing, the official simulation partner of NASCAR. There is no better time than playoff season, I would argue, to do so, and make sure you're up to date with everything that's going on as we race to crown who will take home the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Cup here in 2023. Over $300,000 up for grabs, $100,000 of which will go to the series champion. And if you want to follow us on that road and stay up to date with the schedule, the standings, and more, you can find all of that information as well at iRacing.com/eNASCAR. So doubled up and ready to go. 2023 season update is now available for the World of Outlaws dirt racing game. Blake, we've been talking about that game all year long here on the broadcasts, and new update out for those playing it on either the PlayStation or the Xbox platforms.
Yeah, it's a great update. Again, I've been getting into this game a little bit recently, and man, I just the career mode is a lot of fun, and just such a fun game to just kind of grab a hold of and just go out there, make some laps. It's been a really good time learning it so far.
We're racing every other Tuesday, so you've got your every other Tuesday settled, is get on the World of Outlaws video game. Pace car off and in, though. Green flag in the air. Still with 62 laps to go. This time inside, he gets a good jump. Keegan Leahy will lead us to turn 1. Dylan Duvall, P2, already looking to the outside, trying to make a challenge for the race lead.
And how quickly has Casey Kerwin already made his presence felt? Started back in 16th, is already up to 3rd and clear in front of Tucker Minter. You know, there's been some different approaches about how much you want to save, how much you want to get track position, and I think Kerwin has taken the opposite end of that. He wants track position as quickly as possible. You can see Strauss wash up and nearly into Tucker Minter just behind them, but it has been quick work for that 95, as we have talked about all season long. Hasn't necessarily had the qualifying efforts that he would have wanted, but 10, 15 laps in, we can already see that he's going to play a part in this race.
It is 14 spots gained for Kerwin. That is second best on the racetrack right now to only Tyler Gary back in the 20s, who started dead last in this one. You can see the battle for the race lead up top, and then that mid-pack battle just a couple of rows behind them on the bottom of your screen. That bottom battle 3 wide with the 42 car, Colin Keister in the middle of it all. I think that's the 14 of Joey Brown down low, and championship competitor the 25 of Ottinger right in the midst as they all chase down Dylan Duvall, who's your new race leader now, 10 laps in.
Again, you can see Jordy Lopez down there on the bottom, isn't able to get up and into that line to try and take that draft, but you can see all the moves that are being made. Every single lane right now, Evan, is being used. And I got to say, even the very bottom, which I wasn't quite sure if we would see that, especially with these next-gen cars in Michigan running all the way right down to the white line, but these drivers are utilizing any bit of clean air that they can to try to make a move. You can see Joey Brown using it now. Knew that third lane was going to be used a lot, but they're already kind of using a little bit lower than what I anticipated.
You see Nick Ottinger pushing the 3 of Jordy Lopez to turn 1. A little bit of frustration from the Ottinger camp there. The 3 kind of cut up on the 25 down the backstretch last lap, and Nick Ottinger had to lift to not tag the 3 car and made his feelings known over the radio. Worth noting that Jordy did apologize for it, but again, if you're a playoff car and there's cars cutting up on you and racing you aggressively, you're going to feel a little on edge. And the solution there for Nick Ottinger to remove himself from that scenario was to pass him. He gets around the 3, and now he tries to get around the 42. Keister will not get all the way clear, though, and it's going to be a lonely trip down to turn 1 for the 25 on the bottom. Everybody else lined up nose to tail, and look at the draft. Gets them up to 196 into the corner, and there's another big dive to the inside from the 25.
Well, and that's why it's so tempting, right? You know, you're not in line with everybody on the top side, but you can see the amount of ground that you can make up on the bottom. Now he's going to lose it again on the top side. You can see Ryan Luza kind of in the same boat, just about a car or two ahead of what we were just talking about, and Nick Ottinger But that's the risk and the reward, right? You're hoping that as you get off the corner, you can find a way to get up in line, or that enough drivers are going to poke out of line down to the bottom and give you some draft on the straightaway. But you can see Ryan Luza, another driver who has moved up a couple of positions. It's been definitely a march forward for both of the X-Set cars as Luza tries to battle his way up into the top 10.
Luza has not had the year that he wanted. The 2017 eNASCAR iRacing World Champion, not competing for the title here in 2023. Back up front, things look a little bit calmer than they do in the midfield there. Your top 7 or so have broken away single file. Dylan Duval settling in to this race lead. Casey Kerwin in P2, yet to lead a lap so far tonight, but he is the highest running of your playoff competitors currently. Here's a look off of the back of the Canadian. Dylan Duval has led now the last 6 laps consecutively. And up front, enjoying that clean air, the 95, within about, I'd say, 3-4 car lengths of him off of 2, but not a ton of pressure now, and just kind of stretches it out off of 2, trying to settle in 15 laps into this 70-lap race.
Well, again, sitting at a good spot, and again, Dylan is somebody that really late in the season had a car that I think was definitely playoff worthy, or had some runs that definitely would have made him a factor if he had just had a better start to the regular season. Unfortunately didn't have that, but has been in this series for a very long time, and hasn't visited victory lane in quite some time either. I know we had Michael Guest last week. He didn't have a winless drought, but he was 0-for in his eNASCAR career and finally ended that. And of course, if you're Dylan Duval, it's back to 2016 at Indianapolis that he's looking to go back to victory lane again. But so far, in a great spot up front. And back here, you can see a lot of your playoff contenders not in such a good spot right now. Garrett Lowe falling on back, and will lose some spots to Ottinger as he goes all the way to the top side to try and pass him.
It's not just those red windshield banners, but when we've got these high shots as well, look for those red roof numbers as well. Those will help you identify where the playoff cars are, and there's 3 of them lined up right there. The 18 is Zelensky, the 25 of Ottinger, and then the 15 of Garrett Lowe, all nose to tail. They'll fan out a little bit, take a unique line through the corner, and then they'll all line to back up and draft again. They seem to be fans of that higher line as they try to march their way through the field. Ottinger to the inside of Zelensky in a battle for P10. Let's take it in from the perspective of the Logitech G onboard camera as they're getting aggressive here at Michigan. And a caution flag will fly just as we jumped on board. Clean track out the front. It is an issue to the rear. The 14 is off and in the grass, so trouble with Joey Brown. Cody Bias in the 27 also slow on the racetrack, so at least 2 cars involved, Blake, for caution flag number 2.
2 cars involved, and perhaps even 3, and unfortunately that may have also included a playoff contender. I believe it was Michael Guest in that purple 2311 Toyota that may have gotten a piece of this as well, as everything kind of funneled off of turn 4 around that 20th position. We'll get one more look at it. I think we're going to want to see the number 75 of Zach Novak in this replay. Just kind of look a little bit further up the road. That 75 throwback scheme, akin to what I would say is the Wood Brothers right now with that Sunoco car. You're going to see him kind of get a little tight, have to get out of the throttle off of turn 4 as they're 3 wide behind them. You can see Guest is able to react, Bose, Bias not able quite to do so. Joey Brown and Cody Bias gets the worst end of it. But we'll get another look at it. But Evan, this sets up something really interesting here. When we talked about that fuel window, this is going to be close to it with about 52 laps to go.
52 is the number. It is worth noting that some drivers pitted on that first yellow, but the drivers in the top 16 roughly did not pit. So there was already a little bit of pit strategy happening, but it looks like everybody wants to come in this time under the yellow flag as we cross over to lap number 19. 4 tires and a fuel seems to be the popular choice throughout the field. Who is going to win the race off of pit road? Duval came down pit road first. He will exit pit road in first. Defending the lead is Duval. Kerwin second. Conti third. And Malik Ray in the 7 car gains a huge amount of spots with a 2-tire call to come off pit road in P4. Take a second look at this one, Blake. Again, it all started, as you mentioned, when that 75 car got tight up top, and when he checks up, there was nowhere for that 45 to go, and there's the contact with the 27 and the 14.
Yeah, that's just sometimes what can happen here in Michigan, that outside wall, especially off of turn 2. If you've been on the iRacing service enough and you've raced in Michigan, it can just sneak up on you every now and then, and you can't see it. You know, if you're Michael Guest, if you're Alan Bowes, it's incredible that they're able to react in the time that they did, but it just happens so fast. Again, you're carrying so much speed off of turn 4, as we saw another look there from Corey Vincent with all of that happening. And interesting note, you talked about Malik Ray taking 2 tires. He didn't take 2 rights. He took 2 left side tires. So that is a very, very interesting call from Malik Ray there.
I feel like I'd be more shocked, though, if Malik didn't make a bold pit strategy call. So that all jives with what we'd expect from the driver of the 7, and it gives him a huge bump up in the running order. He wasn't the only driver to go for 2. Matt Busa also only with 2. He scored in 8th position. Looks like Ryan Doucette took 2 tires. He's down in 15th, and that's about all I can find. Looks like almost all other takers went for 4 and fuel, and you mentioned this puts us in an interesting scenario with the fuel to the end of this race. Just updated, of course, on the playoff cars that have had issues so far. Jimmy Mullis got involved in the first caution flag of the afternoon. He is down currently in 29th position. Michael Guest was just involved in that most recent yellow flag. He is down in position number 26. All other 8 playoff competitors inside of the top 18 on track right now, Blake. So no shock that the bad luck early for Michael and Jimmy have them behind the 8 ball early.
Not been such a great night for them. And you can even hear, I mean, you can't really hear it from our pace car camera, how much these guys are shutting the motor off. They're pushing in the clutch, so they know it too. We know how much Michigan tends to be a track where fuel mileage can certainly come into play. We have that set up right now, and I think you're really pushing it right here. It's restarting with 50 laps to go. We'll listen in here to Jordy Lopez and see as they come up to speed, and especially when they get to 3 and 4, if he's going to be saving any fuel on this restart with our Coca-Cola onboard camera.
He's back in the thick of things. P16, pace car down and in, 50 laps to go at Michigan. Spinning behind caution flag and number 3, the 40 car involved in this one. Dylan Alt will right the ship. A couple other drivers involved as well. And we will slow things down. Duval maintain the lead. And you saw just how crazy those low teens were as we went on that Coca-Cola onboard camera for the restart there. But the incident comes further behind, and unfortunately, it was the Coke Zero Sugar Chevrolet involved in this one. So they will pick up the pieces and try to get things righted once again, but 3rd early yellow.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, so come get that Baconator.
Give me one honk if you want a Baconator.
Yeah, give me 2 honks if you want Tyler to make it.
Go night mode. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's Baconator.
There's a thin line in the NASCAR Xfinity Series between winning and losing, between being the future and being past, between headlines and tailspins, between making history and being it, between the sweet taste of victory and the fumes of defeat. In the NASCAR Xfinity Series, there's a thin line between being a name they know and being a name they'll never forget.
Back live at Michigan, where coverage of tonight's race is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. By Logitech G. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. And by Wendy's. If you're not baconating, what are you doing? The Baconator's got 6 strips of oven-baked bacon and half a pound of fresh, never frozen beef. So yeah, grab a Baconator today and choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Under our 3rd yellow flag of this Michigan 140, and there are major championship implications. In our 3rd caution flag of the afternoon, Blake, we take a second look. It all going to start around the 40 of Dylan Altz. He's in the center of the road there, but look up top, the 45, the 46, 2 playoff competitors going to get much closer to this than they wanted.
Yeah, you're going to see Guest making that move up high. They're 4 wide on the front straightaway, and just not enough real estate given for a couple of those drivers. My goodness, Michael Guest was so close to being in yet another accident off of turn 4, and unfortunately, Jimmy Mullis may have caught a piece of this as well. So a couple of tough starts for their playoff seasons here with Michael Guest and Jimmy Mullis. Mullis down in the pits making some repairs, but Michael Guest able to just narrowly escape being involved in that one any worse. Also another update, Graham Boland unfortunately fell out of the server. He fell about 7 or 8 laps down. He's sitting 5 right now, Evan, so I'm sure in his mind he's hoping that this keeps up. He's the only car that's a lap down at the moment.
At this pace, he might get back to the lead lap before this thing's said and done. We've still got 46 laps left in this race, and yeah, tough break. Mullis, who gets the brunt of that impact on the outside, previously got a little bit of damage in an earlier accident. This one a little bit more severe. We'll see just how hurt that 46 car is. Up front, though, no shakeups and no surprises as your leaders stay out under the yellow flag. Dylan Duval in control on the inside. Green flag back in the air. It's a good jump for him, and here comes Mike Conti to the inside on Kerwin for second.
Is he going to be able to complete that move, though? He's got Malik Ray behind him. Remember, Malik Ray on 2 left side tires. We'll see how that works out for him. I'm curious to see if having old right sides isn't really going to be much of a detriment. I think the track position is really important, so a good call for him. We'll see if it works for Ryan Doucette as well, who took 2 tires, as you mentioned a little bit earlier. But now you can see where Ray is checked up, and another big mover. That's Garrett Maines, who's in the middle. Looks like he got a little bit loose, and the entire field is going to try to scatter around that number 12 FGR Excel car.
Yeah, it was more so Maines holding up Ray behind him. Garrett Maines still in search of a trip to victory lane in here. eNASCAR, his 3rd season competing. Good avoidance there, and a good job by Malik Ray and others behind to check up, not run him over, but certainly hurt the progress of the 7, because that little bit of a slip up there drops Malik Ray all the way out of the top 10 in the blink of an eye. Race leaders, as always, get to be the first to single file out. You're looking at that 54 machine of Daniel Falkingham right now. Scored in 13th spot. Wants a little bit more, but you can see the 3 wide in front of him. Garrett Lowe using the apron on the front stretch. They'll be 3 wide down to turn 1, and the 15 car throws it in aggressively on the bottom of the corner, but it's the outside, if they've been able to keep position, who's been getting the runs. And up top there's the 18 of Bobby Zelensky pushing now with the 3 of Jordy Lopez.
caught out of line. But I think one thing when you look at that number 15 of Garrett Lowe, it has been a completely different Garrett Lowe since what we saw at Nashville happen. Went out there, dominated that race, thought as though he should win. But this has been a Garrett Lowe that, at least in the couple of years that I've been covering this series, I have yet to see. And it's been great to see how aggressive he's been, how much speed that 15 car has had. And boy, have they done an amazing job keeping themselves in the playoff picture. And again, why I think he is a big favorite to win the championship right now. We have so many different types of racetracks here in this round. We have Michigan, Dover, and Phoenix. He's been fast at all of those types of racetracks, and I think is going to fall into that 15 as we ride on board with the 54, having one of his better runs in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series with Daniel Falkingham, who's having a solid run here in Michigan.
And Falkingham, one of the many true rookies in the field this season. Two of them, though, made it to the playoffs, and we've talked about them extensively. It both Jordy Lopez and Tucker Minter competing here in 2023. Kind of in the blink of an eye, though. I mean, you talk about a guy like a Garrett Lowe. All of a sudden, Blake, a fifth-year driver, no longer kind of one of the young guards, almost turning into a veteran. He's a multi-time race winner. He's got 3 in the bank so far. I mean, so many people, I think Garrett Lowe burst onto the scene a couple of years ago. You kind of take to him as one of those younger drivers, but he's been around the block. I think he's ready to make some noise this year.
Certainly so. He's come around to it, and I think has learned a lot through the different experiences that he's had over those years, and how aggressive you have to be to win these races, the types of moves, the positions that you have to put yourselves in, and how to get comfortable with that. That's something that takes time. It doesn't come naturally, as we see a collection right there. A great job by a couple of those drivers, Keegan Leahy being one of them in the number 23. Again, what a stat to be talking about, that Keegan Leahy, after his championship a number of years ago, not in the playoffs yet again for that number 23 car, and how good he's been in series past. But that just goes to show you how this series evolves and changes, and throughout time we have drivers that dominate, they're up front, and then all of a sudden somebody like even a Ray Alfala, the GOAT when it comes to the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, has to find his way back like he's trying to do this year.
It is the same playing field for everybody, no matter how many years you've been in it. And Colin Keister right now in the 42 car. Got a little bit of a touch there on the right rear quarter panel. And now diving underneath him, going to be the 18 machine of Zelensky. And experience. Look out! He gets spun around. There goes the 42 as he spins into the grass.
No caution.
Still no caution, though. He's off the racing surface. He slides all the way to the inside wall, but we stay green.
Off the racing surface, we stay green, and yet another example. 4 wide off of turn 4, not working. He and Keegan Leahy get together, and unfortunately for Keister, just gets spun around the wrong way. Again, if he gets spun out on the racetrack, that's easily a yellow flag with all the cars zooming around him. But unfortunately, Duck kind of did a good job of, hitting the gas and getting out of harm's way, but going to set him back behind the 8 ball and only about 10 seconds in front of the leaders by the time he gets going.
We've talked about some of the near misses as well tonight. When that 42 spun to the inside, he was about 3 feet off of the back bumper of the 18 machine of Zelensky. So a near miss there for Bobby Z, who is in search of that championship 4 redemption. Seems like he's a shoe-in to make it to that finale every year, hoping 2023 could be the difference maker. Let's take a second look at how it happened on the bottom.
Yeah, it's Steven Wilson making that last-minute move. Keegan Leahy gives him the space, and I just think that's a case where Keister just didn't know that there were 2 cars on the outside of him. He tracks off and takes a line as if there's just 1 car. There happens to be 2, with Wilson showing his nose at the very last second. Leahy respected it, and I just don't think Keister was aware that they were 2 wide above him. And not only that, he has a car beneath him as well who has to recognize that as well. So just tough how quickly everything can happen here in Michigan, especially with how dominant and how important we've seen being on the outside lane is, both on the front stretch and on the back straightaway.
No change up front so far. Dylan Duval holds a half a second advantage over Casey Kerwin. So Dylan's led 25, so to be 26 laps of this race. So he's settled in to quite a nice rhythm. And look at all the red there in the top 14. 8 of your 10 playoff cars running top 14, now top 15 in the running order as Lowe slips down, and another yellow flag on the inside. It is a slow spin for the 88 machine of Kevin King.
In another example, I think Kevin King, this is going to kind of be the second week in a row that he's just going down the front stretch here. He did the same thing at Pocono where he was just kind of riding in line and honestly just out of nowhere just gets turned. And I think the exact same thing happened here. He had gotten shoved out of the outside line and was just about to talk about him because he had really made his progress, was up near the top 10 for just a moment, battling with some of these guys. And we're going to see it here off of turn 4. You can see he's going to be in the middle. That's Vicente Salas in the 55. Tinsley makes that move. We've seen a lot of late moves on the high side of turn 4. They're going to be 4 wide. They're going to move to 3. And I think Luza expects King to kind of move up the racetrack. And I mean, just simply put, just hooks him in the left rear and doesn't fully turn him around. King does a great job of collecting it. But again, that's just another case, I think, where having a spotter, you got to know that there's 2 cars to your outside. Unfortunately, I don't think Luza was just aware. We'll see one more look of it here from the ESC machine.
Yeah, this will be a good perspective. You can see King got a little bit of room, so maybe the 4 expected him to move up, and 4 gets into him, gets off him pretty quick, Blake. I think if he stays going up the hill, he spins if it's a big mess. So certainly when he got into him, he got off him quick, but that's not going to be much consolation for Kevin King, who did a very good job, as you mentioned, just locked it up, didn't come back up the racetrack, and it ends up being just a lazy spin down in turn 1 instead of another big mess. And 2 yellow flags now, back to back. Do we have takers? Ottinger thought about it. Wilson thought about it. Still no dice. Keegan Leahy, first car to pit road. Colin Bowden and co. So from 16th on back is where we'll see drivers head to pit road.
So not many takers onto the pits. So we're seeing that track position is really what it is all about. And the best track position on the racetrack right now is owned by this man in Dylan Duval. Quickly made your way up to the front, Dylan. I know you have Casey behind you, but how's the car driving so far? It seems like it's one of the best pieces you've had this year.
Yeah, the Eckrich meets Ford Mustang is really, really good. I'm a little concerned of what it might do over like a long run, but for these short runs, I feel like we have the best car here, so hopefully that'll play into our favor here, and hopefully we make it to the end of this thing on gas, or yellows fall right, because we're kind of tight right now, so.
Well, I know you're saving a little bit, but you mentioned what is it about the long run that may concern you?
I feel like we kind of just went for more speed. I think some of these guys have something that's going to drive a little bit better as we go later. So just kind of more of a concern of balance. I think if we go long, they could come back to us, or maybe I'm completely wrong and we just keep this same speed the whole race. Hard to tell because we didn't really have any practice races for this, but that was kind of my fear coming in. I felt like we were going to be pretty good to start, and then it might get a little bit worse as we went. But up to this point, it's been really good, so definitely thankful for that. Houston did a good job putting this thing together this week.
You certainly did, but Dylan, we'll let you get back after it. Best of luck to you the rest of the way.
Thanks, guys.
Well, those are thoughts from your race leader in this one, Dylan Duval, who is quickly racking them up, soon to lead now 30 laps as we head off now down to turn 1. Lights out on top of the pace car. And already, just kind of quickly, past halfway, Blake. 32 laps to go. Going to be the number. Would we come by the next time? You mentioned it off at the top. 70 laps. Not a ton of time to make your noise, but certainly there's been a lot of it thus far. I want to remind you again to use this opportunity to scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen to stay up to date with the latest news and updates from around the world of eNASCAR and with iRacing, the official simulation partner of NASCAR. Championship contenders occupy 5 of the top. We got 5 of the top 6. We've got 5 of the top 7, 7 of the top 9. You can go on and on. Point is, Blake, that's a lot of red. You can see it there on the left-hand side of your screen. They are all climbing up the leaderboard right when the getting's getting good.
It is, and I think that's partly, okay, there's a reason that they're in the playoffs is because these are the 10 best of the 40 best drivers in the world. But I also tend to think that while these guys are racing, there are certain moves throughout the pack that they're going to get a little more grace being a playoff driver. These drivers know how much it means to be in this position, and they're going to get the benefit of the doubt a couple of times when they oftentimes wouldn't have early on in the season, and I think that's why you'll see a lot of these red banners up front all night long.
Duval's been real good on the last couple of restarts. Let's see if the 41 can do it again. Green flag in the air. It is another good jump, but it's going to be all on his own. 2 car lengths, the advantage to turn 1. Conti gets a good shove from the 51 of Strauss. So it's going to be Conti side by side with Kerwin for P2. The 8 car clear on the inside. He's close. Kerwin, though, will get that speed off of 2.
Not quite enough, but again, I think that was kind of some gamesmanship there from Ottinger and from Michael Conti. Ottinger did not want to push Casey Kerwin on that start. Strauss pushed Conti and was trying to get him up in front. As we see, I think Falkingham, one of the bright green Joe Gibbs cars, almost into the outside wall. No caution. He saves it as he's off the pace. Great catch by our camera crew there. But again, another example right there. We know Conti and Ottinger, that they're pretty good friends, and Kerwin was definitely not getting pushed by Ottinger the same way, and eventually we see Conti led up into the outside line by Nick Ottinger.
Nick Ottinger, 2022 Series champion. Mike Conti, 2014 Series champion. You've got technical alliance with those 2 cars in first and second position. How does that factor in to how this race plays out? As you can see, the top 10 was pretty quickly where things single filed out, no longer side by side with the 25 to the outside of the 15. There's 3 wide behind with the 12 of Garrett Maines now tucking in line. Big pickup there for Steven Wilson. Back to P7. Now the 12 goes back underneath him. So there is no more get in line and follow Dylan Duval. They are racing for a ticket to the Championship 4.
Well, again, the biggest difference in the NASCAR playoffs and these eNASCAR playoffs, Evan, is, when we go into the round of 16 in real life, we'll drop 4 out of 16. We'll drop 4 out of 12 in the next round. In eNASCAR, we're dropping 6 out of 10. So it's not necessarily sometimes a case where we see a lot of funneling back here, 4 and 5 wide. You could see Caden Honeycutt was right in the middle of that, driving a 17 here that went to victory lane in real life a couple of weeks ago. And how many times have we seen that off of turn 4? Honeycutt gets the worst end of it. They're 5, they're 6 wide. A lot going on here back in the field. But Evan, I think that's why these playoff drivers have to be so aggressive. It's not necessarily you just don't have to be the worst. You have to be the best to not get dropped out of this postseason, because we're dropping a majority of these drivers through this round. It's a little bit different than what we see in real life, where if you maintain and you just don't make any mistakes, you can kind of methodically make your way through. You don't have that luxury here in the Coke Series.
Yeah, first round of the playoffs in the NASCAR Cup Series, you're talking about let's get some top 15s, get some top 10s, let's not make mistakes and we get in, right? You take a quarter of the field out. At no point in the NASCAR Cup Series do you eliminate a majority of the competitors. That's exactly what we do here, taking only 4 of 10 through that Championship 4 round. Up front, it's still Duval in control, but for how long? 4 playoff drivers lined up behind him. Kerwin second, Conti third, Ottinger fourth, Mincher fifth. Now Bobby Zelensky P6, make it 5 championship hopefuls hot on his tail as they're 3 wide with that 45 car way down to the inside. And it was now the 18 machine of Bobby Zelensky now in the middle. Here comes the 69 of Colin Bowden, though, to make some noise.
He came down in pit at lap 36, so he should be good on fuel. And I think that's why right now we don't see Casey Kerwin wanting to go up front. We heard it in Dylan Duval's interview that he was hoping he can make it on fuel. Well, where's the worst spot in the field to be when draft matters as much as it does. It's up front. And you know what? Colin Bowden's got fresh tires, and he is making it work. So those drivers, we saw kind of that split, whether you want to keep track position, whether you want 4 fresh tires. How about Colin Bowden showing that 4 tires means something? He's going to go down to the bottom. He's going to have third. He's going to have second, as many more cars behind us are 3 and 4 wide. But we know Bowden, he doesn't care if these guys are racing for a championship. He wants his first eNASCAR win.
And Colin Bowden is on about 20 lap fresher tires than all of those around him, and he is putting them to work. Had second for a moment, now drops back behind Kerwin, so sits in third for now. You can see the 18 is Zelensky trying to make some moves on the bottom. They're still 3-4 wide back there in the teens, but that's separate from this battle right here for the lead. Bowden again to the inside of Casey Kerwin, all the way to the bumper of Dylan Duval, and he'll slide up right in between them, take away second, and now he sets his sights on the race lead.
And again, I don't think it'll be too much longer. And if you're Dylan Duval, Bowden has the fresher tires. You're concerned about whether you can make it on fuel. If you're the 41, I would just let him by at this point. And you can see exactly that as the mullet is going to lead here at Michigan. You can see the smirk on his face. He's happy, and he's going to have a bunch of hungry hounds to hold off for the next couple of laps. But for now, Colin Bowden, your new race leader here at Michigan with 25 to go.
First time we've been able to say that since about 10 laps into this race. This new race leader as Bowden goes to the front, and you can see this big melting pot in the midfield. Bowden not the only one on that strategy that he selected, though, so there are some other cars in this who have fresh tires, and they may be pushing some of the cars on the older tires out of the way. Wilson was on the apron. He's now 4 wide with Femi Olot, the 4, Ryan Luza in the middle there. You're looking for Joey Brown, Ryan Luza. Those are the drivers on fresh tires also who are trying to take that Colin Bowden route and get to the front soon.
Look at Dylan. He was spun not too long ago, but again, because of that, he took the opportunity, got off cycle, got 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, and now he is storming through the field along with Colin Bowden as well. We're starting to see that mesh. Those drivers who pit starting to make their way to the front of the field. Dylan Aldis, one of them. We have Joey Brown right now, who's all the way up to 9th. Keegan Leahy. So it is going to get interesting here up front, and most of our playoff contenders, Evan, they stayed out, so they're going to be hanging on for dear life as Bobby Zelensky is doing just that off of turn 4 in front of Michael Conti.
The only playoff car on what I would call the Bowden strategy is Mullis, and it doesn't matter. He's damaged. He's in 38th. So here comes a challenge for the lead. Dylan Alt against Colin Bowden. Fresh tires versus fresh tires as they'll battle off at 2. And Bowden, a good defense. He uses the outside to carry his speed down the back straightaway. He'll defend for the moment. There's the onboard with Alt, bottom right of the screen. He wants to find a way by the 69. Don't look now. Here comes Keegan Leahy also on fresh tires. Joey Brown, Ryan Luza, they're also joining the party. There's a look back at Luza. So your top 3 now, all cars who pitted on the yellow 13 laps ago.
Leahy just made a remarkable move in 3 and 4 to get by 2, 3, 4 cars at the same time. He's going to do the same thing and take the lead from Bowden and Dylan Alt. You can see how well those fresh tires are working. And Evan, I think if you're these top 3 or 4, Joey Brown, another driver that's on fresh tires, you don't want to battle each other. You want to push each other. You want to get a gap to where you can finally break the draft. We know how difficult it can be to do that, but if you're Bowden, if you're Dylan Alt, if you're Joey Brown, I think you kind of have to come to terms here. You have the fresh tires. You have the speed. Let's work together, and if we can do that, maybe we can break the draft of all these playoff drivers who continue to free fall through the field.
They are falling down and down. Remember how much red there was inside of the top 10? They're all midfield now because it's all those cars and fresh tires that have passed them, and there's more coming, right? Keister's got fresh tires. He's going to cycle up. Matt Busa also had fresh tires. He'll cycle up, and the battle for what was the top 10 is probably going to become the battle for about 10th on back if this continues to play itself out how it looks now. You're looking at Lopez funnied with Conti at the moment. This is right around that number 10 position, but those cars on fresh Goodyear Eagles are running away. And your race leader at the time being, with 20 laps to go, is Keegan Leahy. Doesn't make these battles any less important. They're still for every single point, but this went from looking like it was going to be a dealer's choice on which playoff driver was going to win this race to them fighting to get a top 10 at best. Still important, but they are no longer battling for the race win.
Here comes Joey Brown down to the inside, and like you said, Evan, they're not battling for the race win. They're also battling to make it on fuel. How stressful has this got to be? If you're a playoff driver, you can see yourself, you're falling through the field, you're continuing to lose spot to non-playoff contenders, and yet they also are stretching it on fuel. Do they save and potentially go further back, and if a caution comes out, it bites them, or do they fight for track position and hope that they don't run out? Again, this is such a stressful time for these drivers, these crew chiefs, as Ottinger almost loses it in the middle of the back straightaway. They had to go to the bottom. There is so much happening in this race, Evan. We basically have two races, the fight for the win and the fight for the playoffs, and whether they can make it to the end on fuel.
And there was a touch that said Conti to the apron on the back straightaway. There's more cars going all the way down to the white line as they race off to turn number 1. So this thing has picked up quick. The 2 now down to the bottom of the racetrack. That's Corey Vincent trying to make some moves. If this race goes the distance to the end, it would be the longest green flag stretch of the night. Maybe not what those playoff drivers are hoping for, because this thing's been turned on its head. All of a sudden, 1 through 6 non-playoff drivers, and look at them fight now. The Foralooza was just about clear of Joey Brown for second. Instead, he'll be 5th at the start-finish line as Brown maintains second. It's Bowden third. Then it's the 40 of Alt in P4. Luza 5th. Duval P6. They're all still chasing down Keegan Leahy. And it's worth noting that those playoff cars on the older tires haven't fallen back, Blake. They're still right there, right? Bobby Zelensky 7/10 off, Minter 9/10 off. These cars up front haven't checked out by multiple seconds, but they certainly have the upper hand.
Well, again, they're still somewhat battling each other. Luza's not giving up on the bottom, and he's trying to fight with Dylan Alt. You'd hope that they don't run their tires off and kind of allow these drivers who probably are forced to save tires because they have to conserve their fuel to eventually catch them and have the draft kind of bring back their tires rather, to a more equal cycle. But back up front, change for the race lead. It's finally come this late in the season. We thought we would see it earlier, but Joey Brown takes the race lead from Keegan Leahy with 15 laps to go, and I think you can see right there, Evan, he was wiping the sweat. He's ready to go after driving through the field. He's focused.
He is working hard, and he is focused up front, because after we saw Duval settle in for a 37-lap run up front, nobody has been able to hold the race lead for more than about 4 laps since this run has picked itself back up, so he knows he's under fire. Look at Leahy just pushing that 14 Ford all the way to turn 1, then ducks down to the inside, trying to find a hole in the Logitech Toyota. Up top, though, the 69 of Bowden going to come right back to him. He'll take second spot away off of 2, and now Joey Brown has got a new challenger to deal with. So the battle up front continues. There are still more cars on fresh tires. Look for the cars that aren't highlighted in red, right? Alt P6, Duval P7, Busa P8, all those cars on those fresher tires as well. They're going to try to continue to work their way up front, so it continues to drop these red playoff cars further and further down into the midfield as this race carries on.
And you can see how focused. I mean, Joey, he had a death grip on that wheel. And you could really see with the orange stripe that he had on his wheel, it's staying very centered. Tells me he's a little bit free up front, which, you know, we've heard when you get out in that clean air, that's definitely going to be a concern for these drivers, especially if as they have their fresh ones. I got to give a nod, though. How about Bobby Zelensky, one of those drivers that is still on older tires, was still somewhat concerned a little bit earlier about fuel, but he's kind of cycled out to be the best of those drivers that are kind of on that strategy that stayed out. He's been able to maintain his track position. He's even ahead of Dylan Alt right now. So Bobby Zalenski, again, we talk about how often he's been able to make the championship four. It's because of his composure and ability to execute in these high-pressure situations, and we'll see if he kind of maintains. You can see him right there getting a run on Matt Bussa, who, again, is on fresher tires than him. So Zalenski, despite the situation he's in, you really have to imagine this, Evan. You're not racing anybody in front of you. Yes, you want the win to lock yourself into the championship four, but at least for now, you have to kind of rest easy with the fact that, one, you have the most bonus points heading into this round by virtue of having the most wins, but also knowing that you're ahead of everybody you need to be ahead of right now. Is Colin Bowden going to look for the race lead into turn one?
Bowden wants to go back up front in this race. He is clear off of turn two. So Bowden will go back to the point. Leahy going to cut right back under the 14 of Joey Brown. This time they'll fight for second. What this bare knuckle brawl up front has done is brought the playoff cars back into this. Bobby Zalenski's right there. And look at them working hard on the wheel. Brown working hard to get back up there. Meanwhile, Bobby Zalenski's stone cold. He's there too. On the bumper, the 97 to Matt Bussa. Bobby Zalenski in old tires feels like he can still win this race, but it's Leahy to the inside of Bowden in turn one. The 23 car wants to go back up front, and he'll clear himself off at turn two. What a move for the 23, who goes back to the lead.
Keegan Leahy back to the top spot, and I think you can see the difference right there in that shot of somebody who's gone to victory lane multiple times. Is Lopez making a move off of the apron. He's going to lose all his track position. Got hit on the back straightaway, saved his race car. Unfortunately, no caution for him. He's going to lose all that track position as they continue to funnel out here on the front stretch. Bobby Zalenski going to go down to the bottom and try to make that move on Joey Brown. Colin Bowden going to try to regroup and make a move at Keegan Leahy, but we are seeing some incredible racing, and it's already snuck up on us, Evan. Just 9 laps to go.
Jordi Lopez was 14th at the time of the contact on the back straightaway. He is now down in 21st position, so a lot of points lost for the Coca-Cola Chevrolet. Again, that's big in the championship picture, because even though it doesn't look likely now, even if we had 3 different playoff drivers win all 3 of these races, there's always at least one spot guaranteed in to the championship 4 on points. So consistent, strong finishes still matter. Now just 8 laps left to go. Maybe the slightest bit of breathing room for Keegan Leahy. It's the biggest advantage for the race lead we've seen since we've gone back green, but will it last? Bowden still there. Luza, Brown, Zalenski, all within half a second.
I know it sounds crazy, but Bowden kind of needs Ryan Luza to catch him, to give him a little bit of a push. We know how much these cars can shove each other in the draft when you pull up behind somebody, and that's kind of what he needs right now to run down Keegan Leahy, but we'll see. Luza has a run. Is he going to push Bowden, or is he going to try to make a move himself? He's going to go to the back bumper. They're going to push, and they're going to make up some time. So you kind of have to form up. You kind of have to become friends, at least for a couple laps, to go up there and catch Keegan, who just seems really smooth right now. Bowden maybe ran off his tires trying to kind of dice his way through the field and get up to the front. And you can even see down the backstretch, Evan, Keegan is breaking the draft, trying to do everything he can to maintain his track position up front. We know how hard it is to maintain the lead here. If he can hold this advantage despite how powerful the draft is, that says a lot about how fast he is.
It really does, and what we saw at the start of this run was all those cars on fresh tires rocket up front, and all those names in red drop down, Blake. But 4 of those drivers highlighted in red haven't gone all the way down. Zalenski, Kerwin, Minter, Lowe, they're hanging out. They're doing a good job at maintaining pace. I wonder if these cars on fresh tires just drove so aggressively to get through the field that they've eaten up at their stuff a little bit, because again, Zalenski not that far off, still within a second. So is Kerwin. Minter, Lowe still there as well. I don't know if those playoff drivers are going to be able to get all the way, get back up front to fight for the race lead, but it certainly did not look like they'd even be remotely close to fighting for the race win about 10 laps ago.
Oh! Kerwin into the wall. He may lose a position out of it to Tucker Minter a little further back, as we have 4 playoff drivers that are running all under a blanket. Now, you know, Evan, this is something that we talked about. It was my theme coming into Countdown to Green, right? It was drivers and non-playoff drivers who could affect the outcome of this race, and certainly so. The top 6 aren't playoff contenders. They're still fighting for positions, for prize money at the end of the year. And I would say for many of these drivers, like a Luza, Colin Bowden, a Matt Busa, even a Joey Brown especially, they're fighting to get above that relegation line right now. And for a lot of these drivers that haven't had a run like this could be big in their quest to try and maintain their spot in this series with just 3 races left to go after this.
And one thing I mentioned too is even if we had 3 different playoff cars win all 3 races in the first round, there'd still be at least 1 spot in based on points. Well, if a non-playoff driver wins tonight's race, that guarantees at least 2 points paying positions into the championship 4, which again makes the dynamics for the next couple of races in this round that much more exciting. Again, your lead car here is that 23 of Leahy. Ryan Doucette not on the lead lap, although as he goes around, I guess, back to the lead lap for the 70-70 car, but he is not a part of this battle on fresh tires and just going around. You're still focusing on that 23 Keegan Leahy. He's still the car to catch, Blake. 3 laps to go in this race. Ryan Luza now has stepped out in front as Bowden and Busa slip a little bit as maybe the only challenger between Keegan Leahy and a race win here tonight.
Yeah, Luza looks a little bit better, and if anything, Keegan had some help the last lap or 2 with Ryan Doucette, so a lap car came by, gave Keegan a little bit of draft. Well, now he's out the window. That's out of the picture, but Luza these last couple laps has certainly made up a lot of ground. You can see Leahy trying to do all he can to break the draft. It's a 2-horse show up here with 2 laps to go at Michigan.
2 laps to go at Michigan International Speedway. Keegan Leahy trying to kick off the playoffs with a race win. A playoffs in which he is maybe unaccustomedly so not a part of. Same with Ryan Luza. You get a couple of champs battling for the race win here tonight, but not in the playoff grid, which will have a big effect on those playoff standings as we head to the second round of the postseason.
Corey Vincent, Steven Wilson drifted through the corner. Is the caution going to come out before they get to the white? Yes, the caution is out just before they got to the stripe. They were 4 wide back in the field with Steven Wilson and Corey Vincent, and just mere feet before they get to the line, the yellow comes out, and as you can see, playoff implications for Michael Conti.
A lot of red windshield drivers involved in this accident, and it is going to push us to overtime. We'll break it all down when we come back to Michigan. Keegan Leahy was maybe 100 feet from the white flag and a chance to win this race at Michigan. Now it's turned on its head. It's the first race of the playoffs, and we're going to overtime when we come back.
I need to try it first.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Pocono.
We now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at McConeySetupShop.com/subscriptions.
And remember, at McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
This is it. One last chance at a playoff push.
We know what we can do. I'm ready to go to work.
A few familiar faces have already booked their tickets. Others are red hot at the right time. While a herd of hopefuls have some hard driving to do.
Around goes
Those last spots are gonna go quick, so don't blink.
And back live in Michigan, where coverage of tonight's race is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of the eNASCAR. By Logitech. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. And by Mocconi Setup Shop. Mocconi Setup Shop is the original iRacing setup shop. It is trusted by real-world and virtual professionals to get the job done. Visit MocconiSetupShop.com to see why they are the official setup shop of eNASCAR and choose a subscription to save money. Mocconi Setup Shop, our setups, your victories. Well, back live in Michigan, Evan Pasoko, Blake McCandless with you. Blake, a lot happened there as we go to eNASCAR overtime. As always, we'll take a green with 2 laps to go. If we get to the white, this race is official. If we do not, we'll rack them up and try it again for a maximum of 3 attempts. But let's take a second look at the incident that has us under the yellow flag, in which several playoff drivers were involved.
Well, again, you just got to look at the 12 car. And I'm sorry, if you're the 12 car here, you just got to know the position you're in. You're sending it 4 wide on the bottom. You have 4 or 5 playoff guys around you. And you're sending it in for 20th with so much on the line. I don't see the logic in that move. He stuffs it in there, doesn't make the corner, shoves Corey Benson up the racetrack, and eventually they crash. So again, a lot on the line, and I don't see why that move was necessary.
And you saw Conti and Ottinger get into the outside wall, so heavy damage to those 2 playoff drivers. They fall to 34th and 35th after seemingly being kind of on track for middle-of-the-road finishes. Your top, I'd say, 11 cars stayed out. It is fresh tires, some 2, some 4, from positions 12 on back, and a Leahy-Luza front row. Green flag in the air, 2 laps to go. It's eNASCAR overtime.
Right now, the bottom, you have some drivers formed up. The 66, the inside, that's Tyler Gary that's spinning. Don't believe it's going to bring out a caution. We still roll on green as Ryan Luza now has a run on the top side off of turn 2.
He's got the speed off at 2, but up front, Leahy clear for the race lead. Where are the cars on the fresh tires? Low, the lead one, still not enough progress. 3 wide, there they go. Zelensky slides, what a huge save. 6 wide, there he goes. Zelensky into the outside wall, and a late caution as the leaders wreck. Off at turn 4, Leahy is also into the outside wall, and Luza takes P1.
So much happening in such a short amount of time. A lot happening in 3 and 4. And as you mentioned, after the caution came out, Leahy a little bit tight, and he and Luza get together. Leahy's car, I believe he may have a meatball flag, and yes, indeed he does. He cannot stay out. So I think that will cycle Luza to the front of this race.
There was the wreck in 3 and 4, and then there was the either concurrent or later contact between the cars in first and second that gives us the change for the race lead. And let's try to break this all down for you. We start in turns 3 and 4. You're looking for the number 18 car, middle of the road. That's Bobby Zelensky. They are 4 wide behind, 5 wide behind. There's the touch from fellow playoff driver, the 15 low. Had it saved, then 1 more touch. He's in the fence. At this point, no yellow is out yet. And then when the caution comes out, watch what happens to the leaders. The 23 car is leading this race. That's Keegan Leahy, challenged by the 4 of Ryan Luza. And as they're wrecked behind, there's 1 touch, 2 touches that sends the 20 up into the outside wall. 23 Leahy's in the fence. And as the yellow flies, scored as your race leader is the 4 car of Ryan Luza.
You can see Low all the way on the apron. He takes that run. He's going to enter low. And, I mean, he's down there. He's above the yellow line when they enter turn 3. Very aggressive move. That kind of stacks everybody up. You hate it for Bobby Zelensky and again, all these playoff drivers that they end up getting involved in this one. And, you know, this is what we talked about coming into this. How would non-playoff drivers kind of play this? You could see Low getting aggressive. Looks like somebody else that would drive that black paint scheme right there. But Zelensky, I think, just unprepared. I mean, Lowe was down there. He had a nose to the bottom by the time they entered the corner. You could say whatever you want about the move on the apron and whether you think it's fair to race down there or not. But by the time they got to the corner, he was down there. And you could just see nowhere to go for Minter, who gets a heavy amount of damage. Casey Kerwin, Donovan Strauss, all things considered, I think actually manages that pretty well. But again, you go back to this move that was made, a couple of laps ago that brought us to this, that move that brought out that initial yellow with the 12 car Garrett Maines, and that kind of sets this whole thing up. And it's just unfortunate to see, the playoffs kind of be affected by all of this.
We'll get one more perspective on this one as we take it in from all the different angles. And for the 6 car back in traffic, as Timmy Holmes there, middle of the road, trying to avoid it. You see all the contact up front. There goes the 17 car, Caden Honeycutt through the grass. He does a 360 loop and keeps the Fastenal Ford on going. A lot of drivers involved in that one. Playoff drivers: Jimmy Mullis, 35th, Michael Conti, 33rd, Minter, 31st, Zelensky, 30th, Kerwin, 27th. I mean, half of the playoff cars, Blake, now sub-top 25 runs after the last 2 yellows. So many implications, but you see here, out of all of that, we haven't really talked about Michael Guest all night long, yet here he is in 7th. Steven Wilson was running, I think, at 26th or 27th before overtime started. He's now up in 8th. Jordy Lopez had a pretty tough night to recover from. He's back up here. So it has definitely flipped the picture, and, there's definite opportunity here for somebody to go to victory lane for the first time in this series as a result of all of this. And by the way, props to our replay team. There was a lot going on right there to catch up on, and they did a great job showcasing it all. And who knows, they might be even busier after this. We'll see. Tires are the story here. Luza Keister front row, 40-lap old tires. Garrett Lowe and Garrett Maines, row 2, 6-lap old tires. Look for them to make the moves, and look for Garrett Lowe to try to punch his ticket to the championship 4 right here, right now. Pace car down and in. It's attempt number 2 at eNASCAR overtime. Green flag in the air.
Oh, Maines into the back of Lowe. Is Lowe through the block on the 12 car? Again, how aggressive is Lowe going to be? A potential $100,000 move for him, as he's going to be side by side with Ryan Luza down the backstretch.
He's going to go all the way to the bottom, trying to break the draft as the 12 of Maines tries to follow behind. Luza, though, going to get the benefit of the draft up top. He tries to come down. Not clear, though. And on the inside, Garrett Lowe, new race leader. The 10 of Wilson on the outside. He'll look for second spot. Barney awaits them at the flag stand. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go.
Garrett Lowe has the lead. They're 3 wide behind them. Michael Guest has an opportunity here if he can get clear of Garrett Maines for second as they touch and make contact through the corner. Steven Wilson also on the outside of Maines, but it is all Garrett Lowe out front.
A whole lot of points up for grabs, but all those drivers in red won as the race win. Here comes Steven Wilson. Looks to the inside. Guest, Lopez, they make contact for 3rd and 4th behind. And off of turn 4, Garrett Lowe will take the win at Michigan and punch his ticket to the championship 4.
And after we talked about the playoffs and how many drivers were hurt, 4 drivers in the top 5 were playoff contenders, and none better set up than Garrett Lowe, who will be fighting on the stage at the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte for his opportunity at $100,000.
He's taken the Jim Beaver Esports Ford to the hall, and it's a point I had mentioned earlier in the broadcast, Blake. All of a sudden, you blink your eyes, and Garrett Lowe's a veteran in this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, his 5th year competing, a 3-time race winner entering tonight. Well, you could make that number 4 And he will advance to the Championship 4 to fight for the $100,000 prize in the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Cup in 2023. This winning moment is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. Garrett Lowe will fight for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Championship in 2023. And how about the fun thing at Michigan? Why not just take the burnouts right down there?
Yes.
To victory lane on the front straightaway.
Exactly. You know, Garrett Lowe, since he started running this Dale Earnhardt paint scheme, he has 2 wins. Imagine that they will likely keep this for Jim Beaver Esports as he fights for the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Cup in about a month's time.
Let's take a look at your Coca-Cola move of the race. And again, all of a sudden, it came down to a conglomerate of playoff drivers fighting for the win. But it all started on the restart, right? Garrett Lowe had that big tire advantage over the 4 car, and we knew that he would be tough to hold off. The 4 almost cleared him right here. Admittedly, probably had him cleared, but that little bit of hesitation left the door for the 15 car open, and he then seemingly, Blake, was going to run away with this one. He gets to the white flag. They're too busy fighting for, right there, that 3 wide for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th spot. At this point, I didn't think anybody was going to even get to Garrett Lowe, and then Steven Wilson does work on the top in the 10 car to get there by the time they got to turn 3.
He did, and he had such a run. And again, if he wasn't side by side and getting side drafted here from Garrett Maines and Michael Guest as they were fighting for position, how about Jordy Lopez, somebody else that late in the going had a real shot at this thing? You give Steven Wilson one more lap, and maybe he has the ability to do it. Guest and Lopez, you could see they almost wrecked behind, but they were able to hang on to it. So, again, so much drama at the end of this race, but yet at the end of it all, Garrett Lowe, as he has done time and time again towards the end of this season, is the man up front and is in a better spot than anybody as he is locked in to the Championship 4.
He's going to be waiting on everybody else to join him. Let's go trackside with your race winner.
Garrett, I know you're doing some burnouts right now. A winner. Garrett, could you have imagined after that Nashville race, you know, you feel like you see your playoff hopes slip away from you. Not only are you in the playoffs, you are in the Championship 4 and a shot at $100,000. What does that mean to you?
Honestly, it's a huge relief. Yeah, after Nashville, we were down in the dumps for a good week there, and we pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps and went to work. We had a killer car in New Hampshire to lock us in the playoffs, and then tonight we didn't have the best car, and it took some strategy, and I got into Bobby there into 3 and probably took out a good couple contenders there. But yeah, all in all, we hit the strategy there at the end. We were kind of waiting on that caution, and we finally got it. We just had to take the opportunities when they came. So yeah, we're going to Homestead.
You have a huge weight off of your shoulders now, and you can essentially relax for the next couple of races. Just the preparation, I mean, for Homestead start tomorrow, and kind of how do you view going to that racetrack? Is it one of the better racetracks that you compete at on iRacing?
It's my worst racetrack by a lot. So to have 6 weeks to work on it is much better. I think we'll feel much more confident once we have time to dissect what we need to do. And obviously we got a little bit of a head start, so that's always nice. But no, we're going to have to start over, I think, and really do our homework before we get to Homestead. But I'm just super proud of all the Legacy Esports guys, Boyd, Dallas, Clayton, Chad. There's so many people that just help these cars to be fast, and we've really hit on something these last few weeks to make our Jim Beaver Esports Big Green Egg Mustang really, really fast.
Well, I was going to ask you about your owner, Jim Beaver. Again, has been really passionate lately watching you go through this run. How has it been to kind of represent him and be able to go on this journey these last couple of races?
Yeah, it's been really special. Beginning of the year, first, your unknowns first couple weeks, and then we started getting the groove of the season. Everything was just not going our way, and finally we got it turned around. But then we just kept having bad luck. And Jim and all his guys stood behind me every step of the way from Nashville on, and we even kept our black scheme, which I'm glad to see this one's making it all the way to Homestead for sure.
I was about to say, you're keeping it for Homestead?
We are keeping it. It is official. We're going to run this thing dry.
All right, well, you already got 2 wins in it. Let's see if maybe you can get a third here up. Garrett Lowe, congratulations on becoming a member of the 2023 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Championship 4. We move on to Steven Wilson, who, again, Steven, late in that race, I mean, you weren't in contention. You were in a terrible position, and all of a sudden, things are changing at the end of that race. How was it from the driver's seat with everything that was going on late in the race? Because it was pure chaos from up here.
Yeah, it was pretty frustrating. I feel like we had a fast, long run car, and I think we could have made some moves. But if you went under anybody, it was just like you lose double, triple that down the next straightaway. So it was just really frustrating. Plus, we didn't really get too many long runs. But yeah, I got super lucky there at the end. I made a crazy save into 3. My wheel was locked fully to the right, and then they ended up wrecking around me, which led to the green-white checkers, which obviously helped me out plenty. So I was down for it, and just super happy with second, and congrats to Gilo.
Well, I know now you set yourself up well. So many of the playoff contenders tonight having really, really bad nights. You made up a ton of points here. Is there any more confidence for you being a part of that championship 4 last year and being able to go through that experience that you know kind of what you're aiming at, what your focus is at over these next couple of races, trying to get back to that stage?
Obviously this is a good start. That's nothing too comfortable, though. I know that these races get hectic at the end like this one did, and anything could happen. But hopefully I can get these Smithfield Storehouse guys up front again at next race at Dover and the next race at Phoenix. I think we got a good shot if we at least get to Homestead, so hopefully we can get there. And I got to give a shout-out to David Schildhouse for streaming tonight, his POV, and spotting me tonight. He did a great job and got me through all that chaos there at the end.
That he did. I know you had a ton of practice at Phoenix. We'll see how it fares out for Dover here in a couple weeks. Steven, congratulations on second and setting yourself up well to perhaps fight for a title when all is said and done.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Steven Wilson in P2, and we get to catch up once again with last race's winner who got his way into the playoffs at the last second and kind of does it at the 9th hour here as well. Michael Guest finishing 3rd tonight at Michigan, and I'll kind of ask you the same thing I asked Steven. What happened there at the end with so much that was going on? I know particularly you had a really crazy race. You're almost involved in several incidents off of turn 4, so how was it from the driver's wheel?
Yeah, I started mid-pack, and I mean my Xfinity 10G network car was so fast tonight. Like we were definitely one of the best cars. Teammates were out front, but starting mid-pack, it was just really hard to pass, and I was being pretty aggressive, knowing that I had to make something happen, and just my car was a target tonight. Everybody wanted to hit us tonight. Was involved in at least 3 accidents. Luckily, we didn't get too much damage in any of those accidents. Got it fixed, and it was just from there. It was just kind of so hard to pass that I mean I got really lucky at the end there. We got a caution coming to the green-white checkered, and I decided not to pit earlier. I figured we'd get the caution. I didn't think it would be that late, but I wasn't even sure if I should pit. But I took 2 tires again, skipped about 10 of those guys, and got us right up front there. And I mean, I couldn't be happier with how that turned out, because we're coming to the line, or coming to the white flag in 24. So definitely can't complain. We definitely gave it our best shot at the win there, but man, that was some of the most insane racing ever. I was getting pushed below the seam onto the first groove, and I wasn't having it with mains. So I wish these guys would give a little bit more room. It doesn't make sense why some of them race the way they do, but definitely glad that we brought it home in 3rd, and we'll take it on to the next race.
All right, Michael, thanks for catching up with us, and congrats on P3 tonight. Hope to see you back here soon.
Well, there's a chat with our top 3 finishers and an update to the playoff grid as Garrett Lowe is in to the championship 4, and he will compete for the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Cup, $100,000 and more when we race live at the NASCAR Hall of Fame on September the 26th, virtually from Homestead, Miami Speedway. So Garrett Lowe is in. 9 drivers still remain with their fate unknown. Blake, in the final 15 laps of this race, flipped a lot of their nights upside down.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, you can see scrolling across the bottom of your screen some big names towards the back of the field who are part of this playoff picture. We'll look here at the top 10. We mentioned 4 of the top 5 end up being playoff drivers. The rest of the top 10, though, several good nights for many drivers who haven't had a lot of luck this year. Garrett Bain, Zach Novak, Ryan Doucette, Donovan Strauss, Derek Bordeaux. Definitely some much-needed runs for a couple of these drivers who are looking to stay in the top 20.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and 5 on that list. Playoff cars: Lowe, Wilson, Guest, and Lopez. The rest of those results will go across the bottom of your screen. Notably, Mike Conti, the worst finishing of your playoff cars, in 32nd. And things are not going to get any easier, Blake, as the round of 10 continues. In 2 weeks' time, we head to Dover.
The Monster Mile, such a tough track to be competing in the postseason. It's hard to get around here, going to be very important. We talk about it every single week, but especially qualifying here at Dover, going to be oh so important with the fact that we may not even see green flag pit stops with the amount of fuel that these cars have. So track position is going to be king at Dover in a couple weeks.
And we look forward to you joining us for that one as we are one step closer to the end on the road to $300,000. But until next time, that is it for us here tonight from the Irish Hills of Brooklyn, Michigan. I want to say a big thank you on behalf of everybody involved in making these shows possible, for your broadcast team upstairs, for our fans on tuning in on Twitch at eNASCAR.com, our crew on Countdown to Green, everybody at NASCAR, iRacing, Coca-Cola, all of our partners, and for your broadcast team tonight. For Blake McCandless and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to personally thank you all for joining us as we congratulate Garrett Lowe on his race win that punches him into the Championship 4. We'll continue and maybe send another driver home with a golden ticket when we say let's go race it again in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday, August 29th. From iRacing's virtual Dover Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the 2023 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series playoffs can be found exclusively right here on the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Michigan, where Garrett Lowe has punched his ticket to the eNASCAR Championship 4.